This is Dr. Guy McGowan, Doctor, Physio and Trainer here at Triage, teaching you the functional anatomy of the bench press. And in particular, what I want to start with is one of the claims that I see my fellow physios make all the time. They say, don't arch your back in the bench press, that's going to hurt your back, okay? They'll tell people to stop with this arch, they'll tell them to put it flat on the bench, and in some cases, that's good advice. If you've got back pain and it's aggravated by extension, maybe you don't want to exaggerate that. But I want to teach you exactly why having an arch in the bench press is actually beneficial and might even prevent injury. So, Paddy, what I want you to do is do your standard bench press, your normal technique that you prefer. As you'll see, Paddy's arching his back quite a bit there. There's a gap there underneath his lower back, but his glutes are on the bench and his upper back is on the bench. Just bringing the bar down, touching his chest and back up. Now flatten out your back, right? Your physio's told you, don't arch the back, keep it straight all the time. What happened here, guys, is that this chest, this bottom of his sternum, dropped down. The result is he's going to have to come down further now. The weight's dropping down further, more shoulder range of motion. You might be saying, is that a good thing? We're working through a larger range of motion, why wouldn't that be of benefit? The thing is, it's not just about the range of motion at the shoulder. If you arch up for me again, what you'll see, guys, is that the lower end of his pectoralis major, his pec muscles, is raising up. The sternum is raising up. And the result of that is not just that he touches at a higher point and doesn't have to bring the bar down quite as low. These pecs now have greater mechanical advantage. That means they have better leverage to create force. And it also means that your shoulders are not going to be taking quite as much load. A lot of guys will complain of their bench press training. They're bench pressing 2-3 times a week maybe, and their shoulders are always at them. And often when we modify their technique, we get them to arch effectively and place their shoulders on the bench effectively, they end up with less shoulder pain. So come down and do a couple of reps for me, Paddy. I want to just point out a couple of things, guys. What he's not doing is allowing his shoulders to raise up off the bench. So round the shoulders for me now. This is what a lot of people do. They try to reach as high as they can and they raise the shoulders up. Bring them back again for me. Pull those shoulders back and down. Those shoulders now have a stable base. So the two things that couple really well together are the arch in the back, which occurs at both the lumbar and thoracic spine, and then scapular retraction and depression, where those scapula or shoulder blades are pulled back and down. This creates a really stable base from which Paddy can press from, making the pecs work as best as they can, resulting in greater strength, greater muscle gains, and less shoulder pain. And those three sound really good to me. Come down towards the bottom. I want you to pause at the bottom now, Paddy. Now let your chest collapse down. See how that bar dropped? It dropped down both in terms of its height, but it also is now almost further from his shoulder. This creates a greater challenge at the shoulder that he has to work against, and what he's often going to find is that these chest muscles are now not quite as active and his shoulders are taking a lot of that load. Another variable that's really important here, guys, is elbow and shoulder position. So a lot of guys, when they first hop on the bench press, they come down to the bottom with their elbows flared out really wide, okay? This isn't necessarily bad. Some people are built in such a way that that just suits them better, and there's nothing wrong with that. What we recommend for most people is that they tuck them to somewhere around 45 degrees from the sides of the body. This is about 60 degrees here for Paddy. That's comfortable for him. What we're trying to avoid is being way out like that, okay? In about 60 degrees. Some people come a bit narrower again, 45. Okay, now show me really tight to the side now. This also works the chest. Some people say that this doesn't work the chest, it just works the triceps. Now, one of the reasons for it working the triceps more is because the elbows actually bend more. There's more elbow flexion when the wrists are in closer to the sides of the body, and thus you have a closer grip. If you go really wide again for me, Paddy, what you'll see is that there's less elbow flexion here. So there's less of a stretch in the triceps, and the triceps are not doing quite as much work. And go narrow for me once again. And press up. So this is working the chest. It's also working the anterior deltoids, and it's working the triceps. One of the things that a lot of people will have issues with is maintaining this pronated position, okay? That's actually quite a difficult position for people to maintain when they have a narrower grip. The result of that is as they come down to the bottom with the elbows tight, what you often see is there's this reactive flaring of the elbows on the way up. That happens very frequently with a close grip press, and if that's happening to you, I would encourage you to use something like a dumbbell instead, or just go with the wider grip. For most people, when they start the bench press, we tell them, look at the knurling on the bar, which is the spiky part of the bar, okay? Go out to the first ring and see how that feels for you. Different bars are built differently, so that's not always reliable. So I say about a hand or two hands outside shoulder width is likely to be fine for most people. So the theme that runs through all of these things that we've discussed, you need to adjust your technique in accordance with your own goals and with your own anatomy, of course. So if you're a powerlifter, what you're trying to optimize for is efficiency and maximizing force output per rep. If you're a bodybuilder, you're going to be focusing more on trying to stimulate the chest as much per rep, which sometimes means not choosing the same technique that would be best for powerlifting. If you're having pain during the bench press in any joint, what I would say is play around with some of these different technical variations, whether that be related to the grip width itself, elbow position, shoulder position, or indeed spinal position. So I've been Dr. Gary McGowan here at Triage, teaching you how to get the most out of your bench press training. If you're trying to maximize your strength, you're trying to maximize your muscle size, or you're trying to get rid of pain when you're lifting, you need to use these tips. Follow for more just like this, and of course, if you have any questions, comments, etc., drop them down below.